Hi everyone! Today's video is another very special one because we are coming back with yet another one of our own print and play games, Forgotten Paths. This time around we leaned into more in our RPG D&D background, so we created a full story mode game, solo campaign with 9 quests for each campaign, and a lot of characters to explore, a lot of maps to explore, different quests to complete, a campaign log, a world map, everything you would expect from a campaign game that's RPG focused. We have kept the main mechanism of tile laying because we enjoy that a lot as well, and it is a roll and write game, but otherwise it has a lot of new elements, as some of you requested, because we focused a bit more on the campaign aspect of it. So Forgotten Paths takes you through the story of the Misty Isle, where a mysterious mist has fallen and makes people forget. Most people have no memories of their past, and you are a Mistwalker, one of the very few people who are able to adventure into the mist and consequentially be the only one that can help preserve some peace into the wild. So of course you are going on adventures, completing quests, and yeah, I won't say more because you will explore more in the story. We have a 49-page storybook full of branching choices, not only for your character's choices, but also among quests. So as I said, each campaign has 9 quests, but we have 18 quests in total, which means that you can play 2 full campaigns without repeating quests. And then after that, you can explore more of the characters. We have 3 starting characters and 6 more to come as stretch goals. And of course different builds with your characters, because we have a marketplace and we have talents and different builds that you can explore with your characters. And as you can understand, it's very replayable and it has a lot to explore. Another stretch goal is also the quest only variant. So if that gets unlocked, you can also keep playing without reading the story every time, because if you do the 2 full campaigns, you've seen most of it, and you can of course keep going back and reading the same things. Otherwise you can just focus on the quests and explore the different builds and the different strategies that you can follow throughout the maps. As you have probably imagined, the game is currently upcoming on GameFound. It is coming live at early September, and we are going for an express crowdfunding campaign again, which means the sooner you pledge, the sooner you get your files. So today I will not focus on the story mode. Of course, I don't want to spoil that for you, but let's assume that you have read the first part, you have filled the campaign log, which I will show you right away how it works more or less, and you have chosen to go for quest 1A. So for each level of quests we have 2 branching choices. There is 1A and 1B, then there is 2A and 2B. So today I will show you how to play the game with playing the quest 1A. I will explain the rules at the beginning and then all the details as I play. And keep in mind that the first quests, 1A and 1B, are focusing on the main rules, the core rules of the game. After that, each quest is unique and has its own thematic special rules, but of course you will explore those as you read through the storybook and you choose which quest to play every time. The rules that you will hear today are universal and are almost always true unless stated otherwise, of course. So it's the simple version of the game, the introduction, that lets you learn the basic things. I have also chosen one of the starting characters, which are the simplest characters to play, and the stronger one of the 3 is the paladin, so that's what I'm choosing here today and that's what I'll be playing. But as I said, there are 6 more to come with much more interesting strategies and special abilities, so I hope this will be unlocked and you'll get to explore those as well. Without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here we are, I am ready to play. First of all, I have the campaign log, which I just told you about. This one you print once per campaign, and you may write your own name, your Mistwalker's class, and if you want, a name for your character, the start date of the campaign and the end date. And during the campaign, you will record which quest you chose to do for each one of the 9 levels, let's call them, the location in which the quest takes place, and then how many XP and Lithbane you have gathered throughout the quest. That is not necessarily important, but it is a way to estimate how well you did during each quest. And then here at the end you record your reputation, which depends on whether or not you defeated the final boss of the quest. At the end of the campaign, based on those, you can estimate how well you did, and we also have a little guide on how much reputation you gained, how well you did and if you are truly the hero the Misty Isle needed. After, we have the character class, the character sheet here with the Paladin class as I told you about. You only print this once during a campaign as well because you keep the same character from start to end. There is no true defeat throughout this campaign. There are ways that you lose things whenever you get exhausted during a quest, but there is no way to die and have to finish the campaign early. Each campaign lasts for exactly 9 quests. On the character, we also have the marketplace and the talents, which only become relevant after the first quest. And that's a way to get single-use items that you can use in future quests. And that's a way to permanently alter your character and make it stronger. Here, there are some trackers to track your resources throughout a quest. And these are some permanent resources that you can have, plus your health, which I will explain as soon as I get into the rules of how to play a quest. Finally, we have the map for that specific quest. Here is the area which you will explore, some tiles that you will place to reveal new areas of the map and shed some light so that you don't get into the darkness without first exploring. You can do that, but it's always dangerous, as I will explain soon. And the secondary actions that you can take, some movement, not secondary, other actions that you can take. Movement and preparation for facing dangers. Down here we have some tables. The rolling table is the one that determines what you find when you explore a new area. And here we have traps, monsters, mini-bosses and bosses that you will face throughout the quest. And the round table consists of 20 rounds, but most of the times, no, I shouldn't say most of the times, but the quest ends either at the end of the 20th round or as soon as the boss is defeated. So the goal is to defeat the boss. But sometimes you may not be able to, so at that point, at the end of the 20th round, you have to go home and whatever happened, happened. The rulebook and the storybook do not need to be printed. You can of course print them, but you will not write anything in the storybook. So if the 49 pages sound scary for printing, you don't have to do that. If you can use it digitally somehow, that's totally fine. Being ready to start the quest, we have several tokens here, cubes, as you can see. You will need some cubes throughout the game. I'm using a bunch of them today, and some quests require a few more, maybe 2 or 3 more. So that's all you need to play. A pencil, an eraser, 2 dice, maybe 3 for some characters or some specific talents, and a bunch of cubes. One of the cubes is used to mark the character's location on the map. So as you can see here, we have 2 entrances for this specific map. Not all maps have 2 entrances, and you can choose in which entrance you want to begin the quest after you roll the dice for the first round. This is important because there are certain values next to each entrance which is important for placing tiles, as I will explain. So this is the character on the map. We move it from one hexagonal space to the next and keep exploring. Then the rest of the cubes here, one of them is to mark the damage that your character has taken. So when the cube is outside of the tracker, it means that you are at full health, and this specific character has 5 health points to begin with. You always start the quest at full health. And there are talents that can give you more. That's why we have some extra transparent squares underneath. So if you get an extra permanent hit point, you can make it dark so that you can know that you have more than 5 health from then on. Then we have cubes down here to mark the resources that we gather throughout the quest. So first off, we have XP, which we gain by disarming traps and defeating monsters, mini-bosses and bosses. XP are only used to unlock new talents in between quests, so we only gather them throughout the quest. We write down the total at the end of the quest here, and then we can spend as many as we want to gain permanent talents. Then we have Leafbane, which is a special kind of mushroom that can only be found on the Misty Isle and has a special property where it helps you retain your memories and strengthen your mind resolve when you are out in the wilds, because even as a Mistwalker, your brain can't really handle the mist without the help of Leafbane. So you need Leafbane both during the quest to gain extra dice, which translates to extra time out in the wild, and manipulate the dice you already have rolled. But the leftover Leafbane at the end of the quest can be used back in town, because the people in the town also need leaf paint, and you can spend them to gain items. The final 3 resources here are combat resources: defense, physical damage, and magical damage. Those are used to defend against the damage you take from traps and monsters, and physical damage and magical damage are necessary to defeat monsters, mini-bosses, and bosses. Finally, these fluctuate throughout the quest, so you gain some and then you spend them to defeat and disarm traps and defeat monsters. There is a similar table up here that tracks the same resources, but when they are passive. So these fluctuate, you gain them and you spend them, but then you can attain passive resources, defense, physical damage, and magical damage, that are always active. So the Paladin class has 1 passive defense, so every time you need to defend against damage from traps and monsters, you reduce the damage by 1 automatically because you have a passive resource that does that. After that, you either lose health or you use defense to further reduce the damage. During the quest, we will be able to also gain some more passive resources when we defeat mini-bosses. So let's get into that now. As I said, the game is played over the course of a variable number of rounds, and at the beginning of each round, we roll the 2 6-sided dice. We write their values on the left 2 spaces of the active round, and we use those values to perform actions. The first action we can perform is to use a die to reveal a new area. So we take a tile of the corresponding size, as you can see here, based on the value of the die, and we place it on the map to shed some light to reveal an area around us. This has some requirements. First of all, the tile has to fit in the map. You can't put tiles outside the outside borders of the map, on blocked spaces such as these, for example, the trees. By the way, each map has its own different terrain, so these change, the colors change, and the abilities are also relevant in each quest. But in this case, the trees and the rocks and this little lake here is a blocked space that cannot be revealed or walked into. And it also cannot be placed, a tile cannot be placed on a mini-boss or a boss. Apart from that, depending on where your character is, you have to have a hexagonal space right next to your character in an adjacent hexagonal space that matches the number of the die you are using. So, if I were to place a single hex tile by using a die of value 1, I would have to place it on a hexagonal space with the number 1 that is adjacent to my character right now. Think of it as standing somewhere and shedding some light next to you, but the number has to match the number of the tile you are placing. The one was a simple one, but let's say we place a tile of size 3 with a die of value 3. Then we would have to place it on a hexagonal space with the number 3 on it right next to our character. So this hexagonal space has to be covered, but after that, the rest of the tile can be placed in any legal way. So for example, we could go for these 3 hexagonal spaces, or we could go for these 3, or these 3, or even these 3. So you have some variety, but the numbered hexagonal space that matches the value of the die you used has to be covered by the corresponding tile. You can also not place tiles on top of each other, so if some of these spaces were revealed, they limit the position of any other tile you place after them. So based on that, remember that I said that you choose which entrance you start in after you roll the dice for the first round? That's why you may want to choose one entrance over the other, because, for example, if I had rolled a 4 and a 2, I would want to start here, because there is a 4 and a 2 right next to my character. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any space to place my first tile on. This 4 up here, for example, is not adjacent to my character. So even though I could have placed a size 4 tile in a way that would cover the 4, the fact that the 4 is not adjacent to my character makes it not a legal move. So, to place a tile, we just shade the hexagonal spaces it consists of. So, if I were to place this tile right here, for example, I would shade all these 3 hexagonal spaces. After that, after placing the tile, we resolve whatever elements we found. And that works in a variety of ways. If we cover a leaf pane icon, we simply gain a leaf pane by moving the cube one space to the right. Every cube starts out here because that's the 0 space, and then if I gain a leaf pane, I mark it like so. The hearts heal 1 damage to your character. You can, if you have taken any damage, you move the cube to mark that you have 1 damage less. If you are already at full health, nothing happens. Both of these can be resolved at any time during this phase when resolving a tile. Other elements have to be done in a specific order that is marked down here. We start by resolving the numbered spaces in ascending order. To resolve a numbered space, we roll a die, and according to the number we rolled and the number of the hexagonal space we just rolled for, and because we start in ascending order, I first roll for the 1, and since I rolled the 3, I check this column right down here, which is for the value 1, and on the 3 it says that I gain 1 movement and 1 magical damage. The magical damage I track down here by moving a cube. The movement has to be used immediately or be lost. I would rather explain how the movement works as soon as I get to this action though, so I will not get into details, but if it is not used immediately, you lose it. Keep in mind that this die is only rolled for this specific reason. We don't record the value up here, it's a completely different, it's a randomizer way to have unexpected results when you explore the unknown. It is not a die like the ones we have in the rounds table, and it cannot be manipulated in any way. Whatever you roll and you accept the result. As soon as we resolve a hexagonal space, we can also mark it off as a reminder, because there are some tiles that are large, can have multiple effects in them, and we can get lost in the process. As soon as the 1 is resolved, I go for the numbered space 3. Check the column, roll the die, I roll the 2, I gain either a movement or a leaf pane. So if I choose the leaf pane, I move the cube. If I choose the movement, I have to do it immediately or lose it. All these are 1 boot movements, which means that's for 1 space, but as I said, I'll get into details about that later. And then we move on to any other numbered space. As soon as we are done with the numbered spaces, we resolve traps, potential traps that we may have covered with a tile, and finally we resolve the monsters. Now, it is also possible to roll numbers on the higher numbers here. There is a potential to roll a die that will end up being a trap or a monster into the unknown. These are resolved in exactly the same way as if they were resolved by covering a space with a trap or a monster. To resolve a trap, we roll a die similarly to this fashion, just a randomizer die, to determine how strong, how effective the trap was. So if I roll a 5, I check the column with the 5 in the trap table here, and this tells me that this trap does 2 damage to my character. That's the damage icon here, and that's the 2 that corresponds to the 5 that I just rolled. Now, since the paladin specifically has 1 passive defense, it means that this damage is automatically reduced to 1, and if I have enough defense, either passive or by spending defense down here from the track, to reduce the damage my character would take to 0, so no damage passes through to my character's actual health, that means that I disarm the trap. If any damage reaches my character's health, because any damage you cannot prevent with defense will go through and the character will take damage, the trap is not disarmed. So if we disarm the trap, we do gain a few benefits down here. First of all, we gain the corresponding XP, which is 2 in this specific circumstance. Then we check this arrow here and mark that we have disarmed 1 trap on this column right here, because the more traps we disarm, we will gain some benefits throughout the game, and on some maps they have special rules that make this even more important, but it is important because you gain some extra benefits down here as soon as you disarm enough traps or defeat enough monsters. And finally, we gain 1 movement. for disarming the trap. Again, if we don't use it immediately, we lose it. In a similar fashion, when we face a monster, because of either placing a tile that covers a space with a monster or rolling a die down here that results in facing a monster, we check the bottom half of the tile of the table here to check what type of monster it is, how powerful the monster is, and what kind of resources we need to hopefully defeat it. So let's say we roll the 5 again, check the corresponding column. The monster does 2 damage. So again, we either prevent it with defense or we take damage on our character's health. And then it has 1 physical health point and 2 magical health points. That means that we need to spend 1 physical damage and 2 magical damage if we want to defeat the monster. We need to do both of those for the monster to be defeated. The damage of the monster and the damage of the traps, happens always. We can't, even if we don't defeat the monster, if we don't spend any resources to do so, we still get the damage because the monster attacked us. But if we also manage to spend those resources, we defeat the monster. If we defeat the monster, we gain the corresponding XP, the corresponding leaf bane, and we also track one of those spaces up here to keep track of how many monsters we have defeated to gain extra bonuses as the quest progresses. I should erase those though, because I may get confused. If we don't defeat the monster, that means we probably run away from it, so we gain 1 movement point which we can spend immediately or lose. Mini-bosses and the boss work in a similar fashion, but you cannot randomly encounter them throughout the quest, so as soon as we get to one of them, basically you choose when to face them by having your character in an adjacent space of a mini-boss or the boss and choose to initiate combat. So as soon as we get to that, I will explain how they work, but you can see already that they work in a similar way. They have damage and health points that need to be reduced to 0 in order for them to be defeated. With that being said, the other 2 actions that we can take, which are much simpler, that was the bulk of the game so far, is movement. So you spend a die of any value and gain movement points equal to that die's value. And you can spend those movement points to move up to that many hexagonal spaces, each one adjacent to the previous space you were in. So if I had 6 movement, I could use either 0, 1, 2, or 3, or so on, up to 6 times to move my character. If the character moves into revealed spaces that we have already placed tiles to reveal, we just move. Nothing happens. We are safe because we have already encountered the dangers that may be hidden in the darkness. If you choose to move into an unrevealed space, however, you take 1 damage that is pure damage. It cannot be prevented with defense, so it goes straight to your character's health, and you reveal the space you just stepped into, but you do not resolve it. You don't gain any potential rewards, or you don't face any danger. In any case, you don't care what type of hexagonal space you stepped into. You just reveal it and take 1 pure damage for doing so. Finally, we have the preparation action down here, which is simply spend a die of a certain value and gain the corresponding benefits that are marked based on this table down here. This is an action you can take when you don't have a better option or you desperately need a specific resource. You'll see how it works as we play. The very final thing I want to mention is that if your character reaches 5, in this occasion 5 damage, which means that it's all the health points that they had, that means they get exhausted. If that happens, first we remove the cube completely, which means that we get full health, but we get rid of 1 row of the round table because we lose time to recuperate. After that, any remaining damage that we might have to take still passes through, so we keep moving the cube in the same fashion. It is possible to get exhausted twice in a row if you take a lot of damage, but in any case, for each exhaustion, you lose 1 row of the round table, so you lose time to recuperate. We'll probably see how that works during the game, or maybe not, we'll see. In any case, I think with that being said, we are ready to play, and I swear it's much easier than it sounds, because that's the main action that's a bit more complicated than the rest, but yeah, you'll see the rest as we play. Okay, so let's reset everything. The character is out. I haven't chosen an entrance just yet. These are at 0, everything. So now I'm ready to play. And I roll the dice for the first round. It's a 3 and a 4, which I will record up there. So, if I want to place, I don't want to step into the unknown straight away, so I want to place a tile. And if I want to place the 3, I have to go to the upper entrance. If I want to place the 4, I have to go to the lower entrance. Because the higher the number you resolve, the more likely it is to face danger. I'd rather start with the 3, so I'll start at the top entrance there. Because I would like to gather some resources before I have to face any danger. And for that same reason, I will place the tile in a way that only covers low numbers and a leaf pane. So I take this tile, the 3 is adjacent to my character, and I choose to place it like this. So I cover a leaf pane, which I gain. And leaf pane, as I said, can be used. 2 leaf pane can give you an extra die for the round, which is recorded in the 2 extra spaces here on the right, and you can use it like any other die. And with 1 leaf pane you can manipulate a die value with by 1, either a +1 or a -1, but you cannot turn a 6 into a 1 or a 1 into a 6. But a 6 can be turned into a 7 or even an 8, because you may want to move very far away, or for certain special rules of quest that you need a higher number to do certain things. So now I gained my leaf pane, which I can do at any time throughout the resolution phase, and then I resolve the 1 and the 3 in ascending order. So first I roll for the 1, and I roll the 2. I forgot to mark that I have resolved the leaf pane, and now I resolve the 1. So I gain 1 movement, which I will immediately do into the hexagonal space here. It is revealed, so I take no damage, and 1 physical damage, which I mark by moving the cube here. And then I roll for the 3, and I roll the 1, so it's either 1 movement or 1 leaf pane. But since I know that I have a 4 to spend, and a 4 is adjacent to my character right now, I'm quite happy with where I am, so I will take the leaf pane instead, so that I can roll an extra die for the round. And that means that I used the 3, and because I used the tile of that shape for the first time, I also gain this die right there, which is a die of value 4, which I record in the same round I'm currently in. If I didn't have any room to write this down, I would have to write it in the next round, but always to the right of the middle dotted line here. On the left is always reserved for the 2 dice we roll at the beginning of the round for free. I can also mark this space off as resolved. And moving on to the second die for the round, which is a 4, that I will use to place this tile, starting with this space that is adjacent to my character. And I do not want to cover the 5, I think it's a bit risky right now, so I'll cover this, these 2, and the 1. Also, these shapes are a bit solid, but there are more shapes, different shapes in other quests, and in any case, all of the tiles can be flipped and rotated freely to place them on the map, as long as they fit within the rules that I mentioned earlier. And because I used the 4, I gain a die of value 3, which I write down here to use later. I gain a leaf pane, which I will mark here, and then I resolve the 1. A 4 gives me 1 defense and 1 physical damage. I resolve the 2, which is a 4, gives me 1 defense, and the 4. I rolled 3 4s in a row, gives me 1 physical damage here. Next up, I have a 3 and a 4 to use, and there is no 3 or 4 adjacent to my character right now. So I'll spend the 3 to move 3 steps, 3 hexagonal spaces away, and I want to be able to, for you to see it on camera. 1, 2, and 3. All of those were revealed spaces, so they were safe to step into, so I take no damage. And then I'll use the 4 to place this shape again, with this space up there. Since it is not the first time that I use the shape, I don't get any die anymore. That's only for the first use of each of the tiles. And with that in mind, I think that I'll place it like this, because I feel confident that I can disarm a trap with 3 total defense, unless I roll anything dangerous on the 5, but let's see what happens. First, I resolve the 2, and I roll a 1. So with the 1, I gain 1 defense and 1 movement, which I'll use to keep going this way. I resolve the 4. So I gain either a movement or a Lethbane. I hope to get a movement by disarming the trap here though, so I'll get the Lethbane for now. The 5 gives me a 6. Oh, a 6 on the 5 means that I get to face a monster. So I roll to see what type of monster it is, how strong it is. And with the 3, I go here to the corresponding column and see that the monster does 1 damage, which I automatically prevent because the paladin has 1 passive defense, and that's good. It doesn't need any physical damage done to it to get defeated. It has 0 physical health points, but it has 2 magical health points, which I can't spend enough magical damage to defeat it, which means that I do not get to defeat the monster, so I don't gain any bonuses down here, but I gain 1 movement, which I will spend to go here. I can step on that trap even though I haven't resolved it just yet, because the space is revealed. The only thing you care when moving around is whether the space you are moving into is revealed or not. Finally, I get to resolve this trap here by rolling a die to see what trap it is. It's a 5, so it does 2 damage. One of the damage is prevented by the passive defense, and I'll spend 1 defense to prevent the second damage. That means that I disarm the trap because I completely prevented the damage it does. So I gain 2 XP, which I mark here. I mark 1 space here. Well, not on the monster column, sorry, on the trap column. And I also gain 1 movement, which I don't want to use right now because I have reached my, where I want it to be, so I will forfeit the movement that I gained and not do anything about it. And that's round 1 complete. So now I roll the dice again and hope for a 1, 2, or 3 to keep moving. I have a 2 and a 6, okay. So where I am, I would like to use the 2 to use this tile, and I gain a 5 here. And I'll do the 2 and the Lethbane with that tile. So I gain a Lethbane and I resolve the 2. And I gain 1 magical damage, finally, and 1 movement point. I don't know where I want to go. I think I'll stay there. And then I have a 6 and a 5. But first, I'm in a space where the 6 and the 5 doesn't seem very good, so I'll spend 2 Lethbane to roll an additional die to see. It's a 6, which is not very convenient. So I'll go ahead and spend the 5 and 2 more Lethbane to turn it into a 3 with this ability. -1 for each of the Lethbane that I spent. So it turns into a 3, which I can now place in this location here. So I gain 1 Lethbane and I resolve a 1 with a 3. So 1 magical damage and 1 movement I'll do down here because there is a 6 here, which is convenient. And I gained the Lethbane. I resolved the 1, and now I will resolve the 3. That rolls a 5 for 1 magical damage. Now it's time to tell you a little bit about the mini-bosses, because, as I said, to initiate combat with a mini-boss is always a choice, and you can make that choice only if you are in a space adjacent to one of the 3 mini-bosses. in this occasion. There are maps with different number of mini-bosses. Once you do so, you roll a die to determine, again, the damage, magical health points and physical health points that the mini-boss has. And based on the numbers here, on that specific map, I know that the maximum physical health points that the mini-boss can have is 4, and the maximum magical health points that the mini-boss can have is also 4. So with the randomness of what mini-boss I may have to face, I would feel comfortable having at least 4 of each one of those resources so that I will be able to defeat it. If I don't get to defeat it on the first try, I will still take the damage it does. So then the next time I choose to initiate combat with it, I will have to roll the die again into the unknown and take more damage. So I would prefer to make sure that I can defeat it on the first go, but this is not necessary, of course, that's my strategy. In addition to that, the mini-bosses require a die of a certain value to be spent from the round row. So I want to have either a variety of dice here so that I know that I can cover whatever requirement it may have, or have enough leaf paint to manipulate the dice that I have. But in any case, I'm heading towards this mini-boss, but I'm trying to, make some plans for the future based on the information that I have about the mini-bosses. In any case, I'm spending the 6 to place this tile with this 6 that is adjacent to my character and gain the 1 which goes into the next row, always on the right. And I have a few options here to place the 6 like this, or like that, or like this, or even like this, here. I think I'll try to avoid the monster because I want to reserve my combat resources. And when you face a monster, you don't have to spend the resources if you don't want to defeat it, even if you can. You can choose not to defeat a monster if you want to reserve your resources, but you still take the damage, so why risk that? I gain the Leafbane here, and then I roll for the 1. And I gain a defense and a movement. I'll stay here on the side close to the numbers. I resolve the 2. So I gain a physical damage and a movement. I'll risk going towards the mini-boss because I'm starting to get there slowly. The 3 rolls a 1, so either a movement or a Leafbane. I'll take the Leafbane. I think I'll go for the mini-boss, and I'll show you how. I'll roll for the 4 anyway to know what awaits. And the 4, oh, a monster, not a monster now. Let's see what monster it is. A 3, so we have 1 damage which I automatically prevent because of the paladin. And then if I want to defeat it, I have to spend 2 magical damage. I don't know if I want to do that. I will not do that because I want to reserve the resources for the mini-boss now that I'm right next to it. And finally, I resolve the 6. Oh, 6 is another monster. And the 6 is a strong monster. So it does 3 damage, which one of them is prevented through my passive defense. And I'll take the other 2 straight to my character's health because I want to keep the defense for potential traps, since when I take damage from a monster, whether I take it with defense or health, it makes no difference. But when I take damage from traps, I wanted to prevent it with defense in order to disarm the traps. So I choose to take the damage here now just to have more defense available for the future. Then I can spend 2 physical damage and 2 magical damage to defeat the monster. I think I'm committed to not doing that now. So I will not do it. I will not defeat the monster because I have a plan. So I'll spend the 6 to prepare for the mini-boss. With the 6, I gain 1 movement, which I can do right here to be able to move forward afterwards. And then I can choose to gain 1 Leafbane, 1 defense, 1 physical damage, or 1 magical damage. And I'll choose the magical damage because now I have the resources to go straight for the mini-boss during the next round, which will also mean that I have a lot of dice values available for some variety on the die requirement that I may have on the mini-boss. So I'll start the next round with the 4 and the 6. And now with 4 Leafbane, I feel that any number I roll, I can have, even after I spend 2 Leafbane, I think. So I'll spend the 2 Leafbane for some more variety. No, actually I won't, because I can do that after I roll the die for the mini-boss. So now I choose to engage the mini-boss, and I roll to see which one of those I will face. The 6. So it does 5 damage. 1 is prevented with the passive defense, so 4. Another, I'll take another one here, and the 3 remaining I will prevent with the defense this time around, because I don't want to lose a full row, and we'll see what will happen in the future. Then I need 1 physical damage, which I spend, and 4 magical damage, which I spend down to 0. I spend a die of value 6, and that's all the requirements, which means that I defeat the mini-boss. The first thing that happens when I defeat a mini-boss, basically I gain all these rewards down here. The first one is to mark off one of the die requirements for the boss. So the boss has dice requirements similar to those. You have to spend those dice to defeat the boss. And there are 7 die requirements to begin with, which means that I would have to spend 2 rounds fighting the boss if I wanted to have all those dice available, because I can only have up to 4 within each round. So that would mean that I would take this damage twice, because the boss does damage at the beginning of every round that you stay engaged with it, and once you engage the boss you cannot disengage. It's the end of the quest either way. So that gives me the ability to mark off one of those die values, and I'll choose that one. I can choose whichever one I want. These are specific values of dice, and these are choice of the player. So I go for the specific one so that I don't have to manipulate dice when I face the boss. And of course, if I defeat all 3 mini-bosses, that will mean that the remaining 4 dice I can spend during a single round and take less damage from the boss. Next up, I gain 5 XP, so I go up to 7. 4 Leafbane, so I go up to 8. I reveal the space in which the mini-boss was in, so now I can step into it. I don't think I mentioned that you cannot step on a space with an undefeated mini-boss or the space with the boss, but once the mini-boss is defeated, the space is revealed and you are now able to pass through it. And then I gain a passive combat resource of my choice, or I fully heal my character. And what I'll choose, I think I'll choose a magical damage, a passive magical damage, which I mark here. So from now on, apart from the passive defense, I also have a passive magical damage. And that's why I skipped defeating monsters earlier, because I wanted to get to that passive resource early on. I think it's valuable, but you don't have to go. I don't usually play like that. I usually just defeat whatever comes my way, but that's how I chose to play today. And now I can keep exploring. I will roll the additional die because I don't have a 1 or a 4 next to me. So let's see what I get. Another 4. Okay. So I will spend the 1 with 1 Leafbane to turn it into a 2. I have already used that tile, so I don't gain a bonus die, and I'll place the 2 like that. So I gain 1 Leafbane, and I resolve the 2. With the 2, it's 1 physical damage and 1 movement. Yeah, why not? Let's do that. Actually, no, I'll move here and try to go all the way around to the next mini-boss, just to have some extra resources, because if I reach this space too early, I may not have enough resources, and I don't want to skip any more monsters and traps, because they give XP, and I want the XP as well. So, I resolved those, and now with the 4 and 1 Leafbane, I will use the 3 in this space. So let's place it like that. I gain the Leafbane. I roll for the 2 and gain 1 defense, and I roll for the 3 and gain the 3. 1 movement or 1 Leafbane. I'll take the movement just to be next to numbers here. And now for the 4, I either spend 2 leaf paint to turn it into a 2 or a 6, or I use it to gain some resources down here. I think I'll go for the... I'll spend 2 leaf paint and turn it into a 2. So with the 2, I'll do these 2 spaces and resolve the 1. Oops, that was outside the camera. And gain 1 magical damage and 1 movement, which I'll go here, but then I resolve this space and gain 1 movement, which I don't want to use, and 1 defense. And now that's round 3 done. Moving on to round 4. A 4 and a 6, which I want. So I'll spend it immediately and place a 6 with that 6, either like that, maybe like that. I'll do this. Here. Okay, so I gain 1 leaf paint. And now I hope to gather some resources from those lower dice. The 3 here on the 1 gives me 1 movement here, let's say, and 1 magical damage. Nice. The 2, 1 movement, nice, and 1 magical damage. That's nice. I didn't have enough magical damage. The 3, 5, oh, that's a lot of it now. The 4, we face a monster, and now I'm ready to face a monster, whatever it may be. So with a 4, it's a monster that has 2 damage, 1 of which is prevented, and the other one I'll take with my character's health, and then 2 physical damage, which I spend from here, and 1 magical damage that I have as a passive, so I don't need to spend any, to defeat the monster. And I gain 2 XP. Now it's finally time to roll. 1 monster defeated here, and 2 leaf paint. Okay. That passive resource will make a difference, I think, now. And I also resolve the 6. And I roll a 5, which is a trap. A 3, which only has 1 damage, which I automatically prevent. So I gain 1 XP. I mark off this space. And also 1 movement, oops, which I don't want to use. I'll spend 4 leaf paint immediately to roll 2 dice at the same time. 2 6s, wow. I'm far away from a 6. But what I'll do is, I'll spend 1 of the 6s to prepare. So I'll gain 1 movement and go closer to the 5 right here. And also I'll choose to gain 1 physical damage, because I don't have many and I don't have a passive one. And now that I'm there, I can spend a 6, yeah, a 6, with 1 leaf paint to turn it into a 5, and place this tile with this 5, which means that I gain a 2 for the next round. And the tile is placed like that. So I gain 1 leaf paint, I roll for the 1, gain 1 movement here and 1 defense. What was here? Okay. For the 4, 4 is physical damage. For the 5, 1 defense. And finally for the monster, a 6, a powerful monster. Okay, so 3 damage. 1 is prevented, and I don't want to take any more. I don't want to get my character exhausted right now, so I'll spend 2 defense to prevent the other 2 damage. And then I spend 2 physical damage. And from the 2 magical damage, 1 is passive, so I only spend 1 to defeat the monster, which means that I gain 3 XP, 13. I mark off one monster here, and then I also gain 3 leaf pain, which is useful, as you may have noticed already. And that's the tile resolved. And the 4, I know that I already have a 2 for the next round. So instead, I'll use the 4 to gain, I don't want the movement. Or maybe, that's interesting. No, I don't want the movement, but I will gain 1 physical damage here to prepare. Moving on to round 5, 2 and 5. So I have one of the 2s to place here. Oh, I like that, because I know that I have a 5 for this tile placement here. So I resolve the 1. With the 3, I get a movement to go closer to the 5 and 1 magical damage. And with the 2, I roll a 3. Another movement is not bad here, and 1 more magical damage. And then with the 5, I immediately place this tile. I'll do the healing. I like the healing right now. Like that. And the only tile that I haven't placed yet is the 1. So I haven't gained that bonus, but we'll see. Now, I get the healing. So I move the cube. I get 1 leaf pain. And I roll for the 3. I have to be careful, I don't have much room here. The 3 is a 1, so either 1 movement or 1 leaf pain. I'll do the movement, because I want to be next to the 2 here. The 4 is a defense, and the 5 is 1 leaf pain. Here. And now with the other 2, I have enough defense, so I'll go for the trap. It's XP and movement if I disarm the trap. So first I roll for the 2, and I roll a 3, which is 1 movement, sure, and 1 magical damage. And then for the trap, why didn't I move up there? I should have moved up there. Sorry, yeah. A 2. So it's a simple trap. I already have the passive defense to prevent the damage, so it is automatically disarmed. And now you can see why the paladin is so strong, because the defense, the passive defense, is helpful both for the traps. You may automatically disarm a trap with a passive defense, and for the monsters, while other characters are a little bit weaker than the paladin. And yeah, where was I? I prevented it. So I disarmed the trap. It was a 2, yes, and I get 1 XP. I mark off this space and 1 movement, which I don't want to use. I'm in a good space there. And I'll roll. Yeah, I'll roll for another die here. A 5. Not great, but it's fine. I'll spend 2 leaf pain to turn it into a 3. And now, I think I'll turn towards the mini-boss, so I'll go here. So I get 1 leaf pain. Here, 1 movement and 1 physical damage, and here 1 movement or 1 leaf pain. If I move up there, I'll have some more variety for the next round. So let's do that. I'll move here because now I have access to a 6 and a 2, and I feel better about that. That's round 5. Moving on to round 6. With the 3 and the 4 to begin with. I'll roll once more at least to roll a 1. Do I feel good spending more leaf pain? I want to preserve some for the mini boss. No, I'll roll more and see what happens. It's a 3. So I still have to spend the final leaf pain to turn a 3 into a 2. And what am I going to do about that? Then, yeah, okay, I'll turn it into a 2 and get some more healing here. So I'll get 1 health back and roll for the 2. So a 5 gives me 1 physical damage. And now I will use the 4 to move here once and get 1 physical damage, and then I'll use the 1, which I haven't used yet, to place this tile, gain this bonus, and place this tile here, and I'll roll for the 1. A 5 gives me 1 defense and 1 magical damage, and then I'll use the 3 to place this tile here. So I resolve the 1. The 1 gives me a 3, so a movement and a magical damage. The 2, 1 physical damage, and then the 3, 1 trap. Okay, so let's see what kind of trap. A small one. So I gain 1 XP because I automatically disarm it. 1 here and 1 movement. I'll go here. Now, my problem is that even though I do have enough resources, I can't be certain that I will have the correct die to defeat the mini-boss. So I either have to go gather Lithbane, or I have to risk rolling more than once for the mini-boss and getting a lot of damage, taking a lot of damage. So let's see what will happen. I will roll for the next round anyway. A 2 and a 3. And I either risk, I have a 50% chance to roll the wrong number, but I think that instead, since I rolled a 2, I will place this tile here to at least gain 1 Lithbane, and then with the 2 gain 1 magical damage. And now with 1 Lithbane I have access to a 2 and a 4 through the 3, and a 5 through the 6, so the only number that I cannot fulfill the requirement for is the 1. So I'll take my chances and roll for the mini-boss, and hope that I don't roll a 1. Okay, that was good. So, a 3. No, I don't spend it immediately, I checked down here, I got excited. It does 4 damage, which 1 gets prevented. I'll take 2 more to my character's health, which is 3, and I'll spend 1 defense here for the 4th. And then I need 2 physical damage and 4 magical damage, but one of them is passive, so another 3, drops down to 6. Then I need to spend a die of value 3, which I have, that was lucky. And I defeated the mini-boss, so I'll get my rewards down here. First I mark off one of those values, I'll go for this one, any die, 5 XP. So up to 20, 4 Lithbane, now I can breathe. I reveal the space in which the mini-boss is and choose one of those, either a passive resource or to fully heal my character, but I kind of like the passive resources. The maximum healing I personally feel is more helpful if your character has a lot of health, but right now I would like a passive physical damage to have some balance up there. Okay, I was here, so now I have a 6 and I can roll another die, which I will do. A 1. So I'll spend the 1 to move once, and then the 6 with 1 Lithbane will go for this 5. And what do I want to face, or, you know, am I ready for monsters? I feel that I'm ready for monsters, so I'll go for the monsters and the Lithbane, which I feel that I'm low on Lithbane, and the monsters also give Lithbane, so I feel like that's a good choice for now. 1 Lithbane here, 1, a 6 is 1 physical damage and 1 magical damage, a 5 is 1 Lithbane. Now these monsters can be resolved in any order, it doesn't matter. A 4 for a monster, 2 damage, 1 passive, 1 here. What was it? A 4. 2 magical, physical damage, 1 passive, 1 here. 1 magical damage, which I have as a passive. to gain 2 XP, mark off a monster here, and 2 Lethbane. And then I have another monster here, another 4, so again 1 defense, 1 physical damage and no magical damage because of my passives, 2 XP, 1 space here and 2 Lethbane. Okay, moving on to round 8. A 3 and a 4. And I do have Lethbane to spend, so I'll spend 4 to roll 2 more dice, 2 5s, so that I know how to plan forward. I want to go up there as well, so let's move upwards. I do have the resources now. How do we do that though? I'll spend the 3 to move twice, go up here. I'll spend a 5 with 1 Lethbane to turn into a 6, and I'll place it like this, because the Lethbane is useful and I hope that the trap will give me movement. So let's take 2 Lethbane, roll for the 1, a 5 is defense and magical damage for the 2, a 4 is 1 defense for the 6, a 5 is a trap, so roll for the trap, a 4 for the trap is 2 damage, 1 plus 1, so I disarm it, so I gain here 2 XP up to 26, 1 space here. So now that I have 5 traps disarmed, I gain this bonus, which is to roll a die and add it to the next available space. It would be the current row, but I will go to the next one since I gained the bonus, and that's a 1, which I will have for the next round because of this. And then it was a 2, no, it was a 4, it was a 4, yeah, so I gained the XP, this, and 1 movement, which I'll move up there. And then for this trap, let's roll a 2, so automatically disarmed, 1 XP, 1 space here, and 1 movement, which I'll do that. And now I have the 4 to place. I'll go for the Lethbane again, oops, sorry, like this. So I gain the 2 Lethbane. The Lethbane is useful because it gives you dice, it lets you manipulate the dice, but also I know that if I want to defeat the boss in 1 round so that I don't get any extra damage, I need 4 dice, and even though they are of any value, to have 4 dice in a round, I probably need to spend 4 Lethbane, which it means that I have to reserve 4 Lethbane for the end. But yeah, that's something I keep at the back of my mind for now. 1 movement and 1 physical damage. And then that was a 4. So 1 defense. Okay, and now I have a 5 to spend, which I'll spend to move here and also gain 1 physical damage. Nice. That was from the preparation action here. So I gained the corresponding rewards based on this table. And starting round 9, I have to fix the paper a little bit because it started curving, and I'll be right back. Okay, the character was here, so let's roll for round 9. A 2 and a 5. Before rolling anything more, I'll take the 2 and place it like this. So with the 2, I gain 1 movement here and 1 physical damage. And the trap is a small one, automatically disarmed for 1 XP, 1 trap here, and 1 movement, which I don't want to use. And now I can turn the 5 into a 6, or I can roll an additional die. I'll roll an additional die for now. I think I'm okay with that. I'll get some Lethbane from the mini-boss as well, but it's a 1, so I will still have to take the 5 with 1 leaf pane and turn it into a 6. I can place it like that. I can also place it like that to get the 2 leaf pane. So it's either... I think I'll go for the monster. Let's do that. Okay, there are several placements here, just taking the one I think is better. So 2 leaf pane. The 1 gives me 1 movement here and 1 defense. The 2, 1 movement here and 1 defense. The 6, 1 monster. So what monster? A small one. That's completely automatically defeated because of my 3 passive resources. So I gain 1 XP, 1 here, which gives me a die for the next round. A 6 and 1 leaf pane here. And then I have a monster down here to resolve. With the 4 I have 2 damage, so 1 defense, 2 physical health points, so 1 because of the passive, and no magical damage because of the passive, 2 XP, so I go to 31, which means I place the cube at 30 and add a second cube to keep tracking over 30 XP. Yeah, I was here, so I mark 1 space here, and I also gain 2 leaf pane. Now I have a 1, which I can turn into a 2 to place a tile here. So I gain 1 leaf pane and roll for the 2. I gain 1 physical damage. And then, so close, but yeah, I'll spend the 1 to move in here. And starting round 10. 2 4s. These are way high numbers, but I have... Yeah, I can't fit the 5 up here, as you can see, because this is a blocked space. So I can only place the 1 over there. But let's see what the final die for the round will be. A 3. That's closer to a 1. And then I have leaf pane to manipulate the dice for the mini boss. So let's do this. The 3 and 2 leaf pane to place a tile here. And resolve it. With the 1, I gain 1 movement and 1 defense. And then with these dice, I go into the... I choose to engage the mini boss because I have enough leaf pane to manipulate the dice and enough resources. So let's do this. A 3. So that's the mini boss. 4 damage. 1 passive and 3 here. 2 physical damage, so 1 passive and 1 here. 4 magical damage, 1 passive and 3 here. A die of value 3, which is a 4 and 1 leaf pane. And then I gain the 1 here is the final one that I needed. The 5 XP goes to 6, 4 leaf pane up to 8. Reveal the space. And then from those, I know that I need 8 of, well, the defense is not required to defeat the boss. You just lose time if you get exhausted. But I need 8 physical damage and 8 magical damage. And I'm currently at 6 plus 1, 7. And 5 plus 1, 6. So do I feel comfortable gaining? I'll do the full healing, even though I don't usually go for it. So let's do that. And moving on, I'll use the 6. I have a 4 and a 6 now here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do the 4 for movement. And that's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the 6 with 1 leaf pane will turn into a 5. And now I'm back to, I don't want to face too many monsters because I'll have to spend resources. So I'll place it like that to gain these. So 1 leaf pane, a die, not die, 1, so that's, I was here, 1 movement and 1 physical damage. A 3 is 1 defense. The 4 is 1 physical damage. Oops, the other way around. And the 5 is 1 physical damage. There. Okay. And now the round is done, but I'm turning to go towards the boss, and I want to use the prepare action probably to gain some magical damage because I didn't roll for it. I can use the prepare to choose to take it. I have a 4 and a 5, and I have enough. Do I have enough Lithbane there? Let's roll once and see what happens. A 6. What does that mean? That means I'll take my chances like this. I know I need this to go up to 7 so that I have 8 together with a passive. So what I'll do is spend the 5, the 6 to move once and gain 1 Lithbane. Yeah, for now. I'm risking a little bit, but we'll see. The 5 to move here and gain the movement, of course, with this, and 1 magical damage. And then I either roll a die or I turn the 4 into a 2. I'll roll a die and see what happens. I may have to lose another round, but I was lucky, which is why I risked it. So with the 2, I get to place this tile here and resolve these. Hope for some magical damage. Okay, nice. So I'm now ready for the boss, but I need to move forward, closer. And I didn't get a movement here, so... But I now have the resources that I need, and I can spend the 4 to move twice and position myself so that I can defeat the boss in round 12. I know I can, because I'll need 4 dice. The 2 I'll get from the round, the 2 I will roll with Lithbane. They can be of any value, so I don't need any extra Lithbane. And I know that I have the resources required to defeat it, so I'm going for it. Round 12, a 4 and a 5. The values are not important anymore, but of course I write them down, and 4 Lithbane for 2 more dice. And not all bosses are like that, of course. The more you progress into the campaign, the harder they become to defeat, obviously. And now, I'm choosing to engage the boss. When you choose to engage the boss, you have to be in a space adjacent to it, as we said earlier. And it marks the end of the quest one way or another. If you engage the boss, you cannot back out. So, for every round that you stay engaged to the boss, at the beginning of the round, you take damage. All the damage, the 8 damage that the boss does. And so, either you keep getting exhausted and you lose time, or you defeat it and you succeed. But you cannot back out and keep exploring. If you engage the boss, the quest is over one way or another. So, 8 damage. I can take 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 1 passive, 5, plus, whoops, that was on 4, 3 here. I'm okay, I didn't lose any round, so I'll go through it as soon as we finish, just to explain the rule. Then 8 physical damage, 1 passive and 7 from my resources here. 8 magical damage, 1 passive and 7 from here. And 4 dice, which I have in the current round, so these are also done, and the boss is defeated. These spaces here are to mark the damage you have done if you need to keep going for another round, so you don't lose the damage you do or the dice you have spent, but you need to keep going. And I now defeated it, so I get 12 XP, so I go up to 18 here, so 48 total. 8 Lithbane, 1 plus 8 is 9. And as you'll see if you are playing the campaign. Because I defeated the boss, I also mark that I gained 1 reputation over here, which is important on how well you do over the course of the campaign. Now, I will go through the rule for the exhaustion. If I were to get exhausted, I said that I will mark off 1 full round, and it's the next available round in any case. If you don't have an empty round row to delete, you delete one that already has die values in it if necessary. But in any case, that is important because it may lose you time and you may not be able to defeat the boss, but also, as you'll see here, we also gain XP for remaining rounds at the end of the game, so that's also important. Now, we're done with the quest, but if you were playing a campaign, first of all, there is a note here with little letters which explains where you need to return to the storybook. So this says here, return to page 3 of the storybook, because apart from the reputation and the mechanical aspect of defeating a boss or not, there may be story elements and consequences for defeating or not defeating the boss. So you keep reading and follow the rules of the storybook for that. But before we do that, we have to finish up and clean up the situation here. First of all, we add up the XP of the remaining rounds here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and these are 19 total. And I add those to the XP that I already gathered throughout the game. So that's 12 more to go to 60, and then 7 for the 19. So I have 67 XP total, which I write down up here. Then that's done. I convert the remaining resources I have here for each remaining 3 resources, not the passive ones, just the ones down here. Each 3 of them give me 1 leaf pane. So I have 3 physical damage and 1 defense, 4. And with the 4, the 1 is lost and the rest give me 1 leaf pane. And I have 10 leaf pane total, which I write down here. This resource is only for a specific space within the storybook, which I will not explain right now because it's a spoiler. And now I can remove all cubes from here. They are not important anymore. And normally I would go back, and based on that, I would mark whatever I did into the campaign log. So I chose quest A, the location was Greenvale, I ended with 67 XP, 10 leaf pane, and 1 reputation because I defeated the boss. And then the storybook will guide you through that, but normally you can spend the XP to gain talents. For example, with 50 XP, you can gain one of those talents which are explained in an appendix, and it is a permanent effect for your character. It's like a level up. And then the remaining 17 XP would remain here, and you would gain more from the next quest and add them and keep spending them for unlocking more talents. Similarly, you have 10 leaf pane to spend in the marketplace if you wanted to gain items that are one-use, single-use items and let you do a bunch of different effects. Only level 1 items are available early on, but then more unlock as you progress through the campaign. And the talents are also unlocked not during the campaign, but you have to have a talent of level 1 in order to be able to gain a talent of level 2 and so on. And but these are obviously explained in the rulebook as soon as they become relevant. And I think that's it. That's the quest. I kind of explained how the campaign works as well. Again, remember that this is the basic version. It's to learn the basic rules, and I think it's simpler than it initially looks when we explain the rules. Every quest after that has special rules that are easy to understand and include in the game, but are very thematic and depend on what you're trying to do. So you kind of have an extra task or quest to complete within the map as you do all these things that we already said. And the story unfolds depending on your choices, depending on the results of the quests, and you reach the end after the end of the 9th quest. If you play a second campaign and you choose to make choices that lead you to completely different paths, you can have a second full playthrough without having any duplicate quests. And you're not limited. If you choose map A for the first one, you don't have to choose map A for the second one. You can, you know, go as you wish, depending on the choices that are given to you based on the story and the abilities of your character. We have, as I said, the 3 basic starting characters that are simple ones with passive resources to start the game. From those, the Paladin is the stronger one and is kind of recommended for your first campaign. And then all other characters that we hope will get unlocked through the stretch goals are much more not complicated. They're not complicated, but they are much more interesting because they open up different strategies and unique abilities. And each character also has a unique talent tree here, so you can gain access to different talents like that. And of course, try different builds if you choose to play again and again. And with that, I think we're finished. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough and I hope you check out the game. I will put the link in the description and in the first comment, obviously, for the campaign. Go check it out there. If you have any questions, leave them below or in the campaign comments. We are active everywhere and we will make sure to answer each and every one of them. So, yeah. Remember to follow the campaign to get notified whenever we launch and to get updates about what is going on with the game. We will launch it early September, before the mid of September, hopefully, if nothing extraordinary happens until then. And that's all. If you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up. Before you go, subscribe for more videos like this, and I hope to see you in the next one. Until then.